Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, we've got Maggie on. I'm going to let you introduce yourself in a second, Maggie. But first of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for getting up at 5:30 a.m. in LA to be here. Without further ado, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. No, I'm so happy to be here. And I was like, Abraham asked me to be here at 6 a.m. I will be there. I will try to turn my brain on. But thank you so much for the intro. My name is Maggie Perkins, and a lot of you know me by Maggie Moon on Instagram. I'm an integrative nutrition coach and training to become a nutrition therapy practitioner. And I help women with gut and hormonal disorders. So yeah, a little bit about me. I don't know if you want the whole backstory, but that's just kind of my little intro.
Amazing. I want to know where Maggie Moon comes from, because I've got to be honest, I actually thought that was your name, first of all, and I saw on Zoom it was different. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. I love the name. How did that come about?
So, you know what? My 12-year-old self, I don't know, when she made her Instagram handle, that's what she wanted to go with. And I honestly am thankful that that she decided to do that, because I kind of like it. Sometimes I'm like, do I just change my name to Maggie Moon? Do I just do it? Because everybody calls me Maggie Moon, and I feel like it's very fitting. I don't dislike my last name, but I'm like, Maggie Moon is much more me.
I feel you. I've had a really interesting journey with my name, but it's beautiful to see that you gave yourself that name, because I feel like what happens to a lot of people, and including myself, is I had a nickname from childhood which I never actually chose, and I realized wow, that created a completely different identity. It's interesting how much of effect name does have on just who you are and who you become. But I feel like a 12-year-old self made a great decision, because it's also very catchy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because the handle actually has like 3 O's in it. So because the actual just Maggie Moon was taken, but so it's always silly. I always have to be like Maggie Moon with 3 O's. But yeah. So what was your nickname growing up?
So I actually had many nicknames, but the main one was Ebes, which that happened when I think I was actually, funny enough, 12 years old. And oh God, I'm not going to go into my whole identity thing on this podcast, because I want everyone's here to listen to about you. But the thing I learned was essentially our names aren't by accident, right? Our names have so much intention behind them. And for me, I just realized there were many parts of myself that I hadn't yet fully accepted, embodied, different gifts that I was stopping myself from uncovering, because I was playing a different version of myself. So when I stepped more into that leadership space, coaching space, that was when I made that shift. And yeah, it's there's pre Ebes, and now there's Ibrahim, and it's a totally different, even in having another business, people still know me as that version of self, and it's just really interesting to see how it plays out. But my name means father of many in Arabic, so I don't know how to take that, but that's what it means in Arabic, if you were curious. But I'd love to just hear a little bit about your backstory, because I'm guessing at 12 years old you weren't a nutritional coach and gut specialist for women. Guessing you were maybe a little bit different. Maybe you were. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story with your name, by the way. It's a beautiful name. But definitely was not, aware of gut and hormone issues when I was 12. But I have had my own journey with my own hormones and gut health. And that's pretty much what has brought me to where I am. And I would say that my whole journey kind of began when I was in college, and I I don't know, I think what really started off was going vegan. So I just kind of got in, I watched this documentary and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go vegan starting tomorrow. And it was Cowspiracy, by the way, if anybody's seen it, it's like, it kind of makes you feel like the world's ending and you have to go vegan. Um, and so going vegetarian slash vegan was great, but it also was really hard in college. And I just started to eat very poorly, especially living in a sorority house and also drinking to excess on the weekends and being on birth control, like a slew of different things, like being super stressed out with school and basically having to go on anxiety medication for a semester just because I was so overwhelmed. And um, so all of that together really kind of created this storm that was terrible for my body. And I just basically started having panic attacks and I had IBS symptoms. And I didn't know at the time that it was all connected. You know, I didn't know that nutrition really had such a large effect on my mental health and on my gut health. And I was like, okay, you know, I have such bad bloating and digestive issues. I think I need to eat really, really clean. And and I like went raw vegan and that was so bad for my body. It just made everything worse. And so I've tried all of the diets and I've just finally I think it took me years to realize that how I was eating was actually worse for my body type. And so now that was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I've gotten off birth control. I have basically done all the gut testing and I've tried all the different supplements and I've been able to just kind of create my own kind of routine or what's the word I'm looking for? Um, just kind of something that I can implement for others as well to really help them heal their gut because so many of us women are coming out of college and um, or you know we're in our mid 20s and we've been on birth control, we've had the mental health issues that we didn't know were connected to how we're eating or birth control. And then, you know, we have these hormonal issues as well. And it's just all connected. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with the world. You know, I've been through this myself. And I just felt like it would be so selfish of me to sit here with all of this knowledge and all of this like passion about nutrition and and healing the body from like a root cause basically. And so last year in 2021 I was still working as an ultrasound technologist. That was my past life, my past career. And I began this certification for becoming an integrative nutrition coach. And I wasn't totally sure if I was going to use it. You know, I was like, I want to get this certificate, you know, because I love learning about the body, about holistic health and being a coach and everything, but I wasn't totally sure if I was brave enough to really like take the leap. And as you know, the universe just always kind of it has a way of showing us, you know, what's truly meant for us. And I felt like I'd kind of come to the end of my my career as an ultrasound technologist. I was like, I put in the 5 years and my body and my mind are just we're not in it anymore. And yeah, so it was kind of a scary leap to leave a 9 to 5 and pursue my passion. But I just had so many signs that it was the right thing to do. And so, yeah, I started Mind Body Balance this year, and it's been incredible just living out my purpose and helping so many women realize that the way they're living and like the chronic symptoms that so many of us women accept as normal are not normal. And yeah, just basically helping these women create a new lifestyle and like be able to meet a new version of themselves has been so rewarding. So yeah, so a little bit about my backstory.
I love that. I love that. It's beautiful as well. The passion that you have for this, it really comes across. And I think particularly like the topics that you're talking about, that's so important because they are, I've experienced this. I went through a similar like gut health story when I was at university. I would literally wake up and have like a massive bowl of raw salad for breakfast and then like a green juice, thinking I was like being healthy. Like little then I was tearing myself apart. So yeah, did that whole journey, probably similar to yourself. Watched the documentaries as well, and yeah, have a very different relationship with food now. But for you, I'd be curious to know, like, when you found this stuff out, right? So particularly with like what's in food, like the quality of it, like things like soil or even like birth control, did you ever go through a period where you felt like any like injustice or any like anger? Because I did personally. There was a period where, and maybe I still do to an extent actually, but I'd love to hear if you ever experienced that yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really some days it's hard, especially living in the US. Just knowing that the FDA only bans 11 chemicals from our food blows my mind. Like it is insane how we as individuals have to be our own detectives and our own healthcare advocates, and we have to protect ourselves from the world we live in because we are constantly inundated with toxins from the left and the right. And it's just, if you really learn about it and you understand why, we are so chronically ill, you get so angry. And it's because of the world we live in. And the I would say like the just social structures and the healthcare system and the big pharma and all these brands like Kellogg's and all these brands that are just like, I'm like, what? They are just being paid to make us sick. So absolutely. It's something that I educate my clients about, but it's always funny, because they come to this realization and I think they kind of freak out at first. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's okay. Like the world didn't just all of a sudden, turn into this like scary, toxic world. You've been living like this for a while and it's okay. We're gonna be okay. We just have to basically find ways to, you know, lessen our toxin load. And there are amazing ways to do that. And it doesn't have to be like a huge, huge shift. It can be a gradual, like little baby steps, like throwing out your deodorant and buying a new one that's clean and, making sure you do buy organic when possible and cutting out just different things that aren't good for your body and reading the ingredient labels a little bit closer and just saying no to bad oils and all these things. So it's a lot to kind of like take in sometimes. And it definitely does kind of just awaken this like anger, but it's like it's not useful to get upset. It's more useful to just have the knowledge and then know what to do next.
Well, that is a very mature perspective to take on it. Yeah, I've found like for myself with a lot of like I call like all of that stuff basically the matrix, right? Is how I like summarize all of that. And for me, I feel like there are different stages, right? When you, like you said, when you first become aware and it's like, holy fuck, like the whole world's like terrible and all of this. And I think it all comes down to like your own personal perspective and how you choose to view the world. I find like that's a much more empowering way in which to perceive reality is to choose to see the good. And I think, like you just said, it starts with acceptance, right? You have to accept what currently is, but it can be a lot at the same time. Like my friend who I'm traveling around Bali with, I don't think he's ever cooked a meal in his life. I have to ask him, but I don't think he has. So I've been educating him on food and just taking him around the supermarket and being like, okay, so this is poison, this is toxic, this is, if you can't pronounce something on the label, it's most probably not good for you. If it's got more than 5 ingredients, it's probably not good for you. If it's in a packet, decent chance, and just like starting to educate him on it. And it's incredible to see, because for me, I've lived this way for a little while, but to see it in him, to see like literally within days, like his whole energy, his demeanor, like his just ability to like be powerful, all of these things just from changing what he eats, right? And I feel this it's a kind of topic where there's a lot of misinformation around it. And so I'd love for, I don't know if you've like got any of those like main ones that you come across that are like typically like maybe led down one way and it's actually the opposite. I find there's a lot of them, but I'd love to hear like if you've come across any yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're educating him, like such a good friend. And uh, I think that the biggest thing is, trying to limit the amount of processed food that you take in. And so easily enough, you can just say, okay, I'm going to buy real whole foods. And that's like easiest way to do it is buy the real food, and try to buy organic when you can. But I would say, there's the dirty dozen, which is the foods that mostly fruits that you definitely want to get organic. So different fruits like apples and berries, any type of fruit that you are eating the outside of them along with the inside, then you definitely want to have organic. Um, but things like bananas, avocados, those aren't as big of a deal. And then if you are buying processed foods, like I am not perfect. I of course buy processed foods, but I know how to read an ingredient label too. So, if you're buying pasta sauce, you want to look at the ingredient label and see, okay, there's real food in here. There's tomatoes, basil, olive oil, and some spices. Okay, awesome. Like that is great. And, just having a clear mind when you go to the grocery store and telling yourself, okay, I'm not going to deviate from what I know I usually get and just kind of knowing the brands that are safe and healthy for you and your family. But yeah, I would say mostly it's just trying to buy whole foods as much as possible. And what I kind of tell my clients is that you're going to want to limit the amount of sugar. Sugar is, oh, it gets me so mad. Sugar is so bad for you. Um, and so sugar, and then there's a lot of controversy around gluten. And, there's a lot of people that like, oh no, I don't want to give up gluten. It's fine in moderation. And, you don't have to be gluten sensitive or allergic to gluten to cut it out. But gluten is one of those things where it's the the food itself is actually like tearing at your gut lining. No matter, if it's like really good gluten, it's not, especially in the US, like our breads, our cereals, all the gluten we have here is so processed and bleached. So just trying to limit the amount of gluten is always good. And then dairy, that one also is controversial. But I think if you are eating and drinking raw dairy, that's one thing. It's if it's the farmer, you get to like see him, shake his hand, ask him about his cows, like then yes, eat or drink the dairy. But if you're just going to the grocery store and you're buying your 2% milk, it's going to be filled with so many different chemicals, hormones, and just different things that you don't want inside of your body. And so people are like, okay, well, I still want milk. I'm like, amazing. You can make it at home. You can make cashew milk from cashews. It's so easy. You just get filtered water and cashews. You soak them overnight. You blend it the next morning. Voila. You can add a little vanilla, a little bit of dates, like to make it a bit sweeter. But I think we're so stuck in the matrix of wanting things so fast. And so in my program, I try to make it as simple as possible because I understand that people don't have farmers that live down the road from them. And I understand that, you don't always have the resources to make your own fresh food. And sometimes in a 9 to 5, you have to just grab what's easiest. But just having the knowledge and then being able to prepare yourself, whether it's like having dried mango or like some grass-fed jerky with you, like just so you're not tempted to grab like I don't know, bag of chips. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can protect yourself, especially with food. But it really just comes down to trying to eat as much whole foods as possible.
I love that. And it can be fun as well. I think this is something that I realized for myself. I never enjoyed like grocery shopping or like anything like that for the longest time until I started, embodying a lot of the things you're talking about. And then now, like my friends always laugh at me because on a Sunday, like the most exciting thing for me to do is like go to Whole Foods. Do you guys have Whole Foods in America?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like go to Whole Foods and just spend way longer than necessary, just like browsing, looking at everything, like getting all the food for the week. And it's actually
yes, that's my favorite pastime.
It's just the best, right? And you just meet the best people, and it's like a real form of like self-love as well, being like really like valuing that. And I think this is the thing, right? Things are actually easy when you have the knowledge, when you actually understand why it's important. It's like with meditation, like so many guys I work with, I'm like, here's why meditation is so important. And the only reason they struggle is if they don't truly realize what the benefit is or what the difference is that it will make. Because if you knew, oh, okay, if I sit quiet for 10 minutes, I'm then going to go and like, I literally just did a student interview before this, and he's like, kind of had some depression before and some other things. And now he's just like crushing it, like life with his girlfriend's amazing, he's more present, his business is doing way better, just like living a better life, right? As a result of like these small changes. So I think when you can see that, it then becomes so much easier to actually follow it and embody it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, I would say that's why my program is very educational. I'm like, if you want to even, if you're not even really suffering with gut and hormonal issues and you just want to learn about the body, then like my program is great too, because it's like I give like so much information that I have to tell my clients like, okay, it's okay if you don't understand all of this, but as long as you get the underlying, reason behind why I'm having you change your lifestyle and your diet, it's going to motivate you and like, well, you're going to understand and just like be in this area of like, okay, like I know if I do this, it's going to cause this. And, instead of just telling someone like, okay, cut out gluten and dairy, they're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, everybody tells me to do that. But if you give them all of the reasons why gluten and dairy are so bad for the body, they're like, oh my gosh, I would never put that in my body, you know?
Random question popped into my head. I read this. Do you know who an Instagram account called Carnivore Aurelius?
Is he the doctor who is like super intense and like always talking about meat?
That's another guy. This is a different guy, but basically this guy, just to give context, talks a lot about a lot of the things you're talking about, one of them being birth control, and is a big proponent to like help people like get educated to like get off it. One of a study that I saw recently was it was studying like women who had taken birth control, then got off birth control, and just like seeing what their like behaviors were like and if they changed and things like that. And one of the things they found was that women's like preferences in men changed once they got off birth control, which I thought was very interesting. As just randomly wanted to see if you had any knowledge about that from your side. Oh, here we go.
I'm I'm so glad you brought that up because isn't that just mind-blowing? It's just so insane to me that as women, we are just given this medication without any explanation, without any warning. And I actually have a post that I'm going to put out there today about all of the symptoms that come with being on birth control that most of us have no idea is connected. And yeah, it's just mind blowing that our doctors would, just prescribe something that could completely change our preference in our partner. Because what if you start birth control, when you are 18 and you get into a relationship at 22, you're still on birth control, you think this is the love of your life, and then you get married at 26, and then you realize once you go off birth control, oh, I'm not really into this guy anymore. Like, what? Like I'm actually really attracted to this other person. And I've even read into like basically it could be, kind of confusing you about your sexual preference as well. Not just about like being attracted to a man, but also what if you're actually attracted to women? And I think that's like really so interesting to me that a doctor would prescribe a medication that could alter our brain, and alter so much in our bodies and just be like, oh, you don't want to get pregnant. Oh, you want to get rid of your acne. You have, rough PMS, you have irregular periods. Here you go. Take this, with no explanation. And like, I could just like get so riled up because I myself have, I know that so many of my past, health issues have been related to birth control. And when I went off birth control, I didn't have a period for 2 years. And it's just crazy that women are on these different synthetic hormones for 5, 10 years and have no periods. And they're told it's normal. And I'm like, your period is your menstruation is a vital sign. it's a way for your body to tell you that your insides are doing okay. You know, if you have PMS, it's because either your gut, your hormones, your, you know, what you're eating, your stress levels are throwing your body out of balance. And I just think that birth control has made women so out of touch with their bodies. And it has disempowered us, honestly, in so many ways. And it has just kind of kept us in this like more like a like I feel like it's made us more out to be like men because we don't have these hormone fluctuations and so you know we are able to work longer hours and you know be business women and we're not just at home anymore and going back to when birth control was first um, created it's like men thought this was the best thing ever for women so that they didn't have to stay at home all the time and it allowed us to be able to work and not have to you know take time off for menstruation and we were able to control when we got pregnant and so I think just going back to everything it's like wow is this like was this created as another way for women to be controlled like I'm just throwing it out there you know this is just a really interesting kind of thing where I don't think us women really think about it. You know, we when we're 16, 18, we're not thinking about, you know, our future. We just want clear skin, you know, and it makes me so riled up that we're blindly taking this medication that can have drastic, like chronic effects on our body for the rest of our life if we allow it to. And and yeah, it's just really wild to me. And so I'm so passionate about helping women to open their eyes and say like I don't have to be on this medication just because my doctor told me to. There's like we're only fertile for really like a few days out of the month. And so it's yeah. Um I could go on and on about that.
No, you're preaching to the choir. And
Yeah.
also there are so many like natural methods nowadays that are
So
just
many.
that people can use. But to your point about, you know, making women more masculine, I've totally observed this, and with like a few of the women clients I have worked with who have all expressed like they feel more masculine. I think birth control is just one of many things. And I don't think any of this is just by accident or random. It just doesn't seem to me that it possibly could be. But it's also, you know, men have become more feminine as of that being one of the results, right? There are many other reasons why as well. And we're just kind of living in this time where men and women are like, it feels like we're trying to be made the same because of equality, and it's like wrapped in this nice bow of like feminism, which of course equality is a good thing. I'm not saying it's not, but equally we are very different. And or I feel like we're at a point where we're not honoring like our differences, because that's what makes us like powerful. That's what makes us be able to like be a team and actually be attracted to one another in the first place, right? And just to circle back to that study I saw, it basically said that women on birth control found like more feminine men more attractive. And honestly, like, it's just anecdotal, but I've seen that play out so many times with friends and just like across, you know. So I'd be curious to know like if you've seen that like in your life or in, you know, clients' lives or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say that I've seen it in my own life for sure. Yes. Um, who I was attracted to when I was on birth control is not who I'm attracted to now. For a lot of different reasons, um, but yeah, it is really interesting how kind of going back to what you were saying about men being less masculine, I feel like men are very confused right now. I think a lot of men, if they are trying to, you know, be woke and, with it, I think that a lot of men are trying their best to please women, and I think as women we're telling men like we need you to be more emotional and be just more feminine in a lot of ways. And it's something that I had a really good conversation with my guy friend about. And he's like, I'm just confused out here, like he's like, I'm trying to show up as the masculine, chivalrous man that I was raised to be, but he's like, all these women are saying that I need to be more feminine and more emotional, but then they're not like some of them are attracted to it, and then some of them, are like, oh, that's too much. And so I feel for men. I think that like we're going through this kind of like just paradigm shift in a lot of ways where it's I think that we are trying to evolve so much that we are forgetting the most important thing of like the balance between divine masculine and feminine, and that we were made different for a reason.
For sure.
I
For sure. To me, it's funny. So my dad is he's very like traditionally, you could say traditionally masculine in the way he is. And for a lot of my life, I couldn't understand why he was the way he was. And now, like, God, I have so much respect for him, like just for his values. And I was I was having a chuckle. This was like a week or so ago. It was actually related to Lex. A mutual friend of ours, she was heading to Hawaii, and I was heading over to their place, and she sent a message saying, "Oh, I'm like heading out. Would you mind like bringing a toilet paper, because I'm going to the airport and I don't have the time to buy one." And I remember just like hearing this voice note and then just smiling, because to me, as a man, it's like such a small thing, right? It's such a tiny little thing to ask for. Yet to her, I knew that that tiny little physical thing actually meant a lot to her in that moment. And it's little things like this, which I think a lot of guys miss, where it's actually just doing practical shit that goes a long way. And because it's not necessarily a big deal to a guy, it's easy to overlook of how much that actually means. Or even something as simple as like safety, right? So do you know who Till Swan is? She's I think you'd love her. I'll send you her stuff after this. She's essentially like a spiritual speaker, and she does these seminars and stuff. And she asked the audience for men to put their hand up who's felt like unsafe for their life in the last year. And like a good, I think like 20% of men raised their hands in the audience. And then she asked the same question to women, and 100% of women raised their hands in the audience. She then asked the same question to men, but who's felt unsafe in the last week, and not one man put their hand up, whereas 80% of women still put their hand up. And that, when I saw that, that fundamentally changed my like worldview, because as a man, safety is something I just took for granted, right? Because I feel safe most of the time, whereas it's just a completely different experience for a woman. And so, yeah, for any guys listening to this, if you can provide that, it starts really providing it for yourself first by embodying that. But that really is a way to, yeah, just step into that, But who am I to preach this? I feel like it'd be better coming from you as a woman. What are your top three masculine traits that you like to see?
Well, you definitely hit it right there. definitely safety. And that's something that has actually been more of a recent realization for me, and realizing how important it is for myself individually, but I think as, all women to feel secure and stable and safe. And in my last relationship, I think I tried to provide that in the relationship, and it created so much just stress and push and pull, and it felt so unnatural. And so I do believe that it is, you know, maybe this is traditional of me. It is the man's job to provide safety and security and protection, and to really allow the feminine to be able to unfold. And with safety and protection, it's not just like, oh, like, let me protect you out in the world. Um, I mean, that does feel great, like having a man walk on the outside of a sidewalk, and be there closer to the cars than you are. That feels wonderful. But it's also just providing that safety and security to be able to come to them with anything and know that they are going to listen and, you know, try to do their best to either, help or give advice or just listen. Um, and so, yeah, number one is safety and security, absolutely. And I think if you have that, like, it's amazing, um, how much that can really just create a better relationship for a man and a woman. I'm trying to think, like, what else. I think also just having a man who, is vulnerable in some ways. He doesn't have to be so open to where he's like crying, like it's doesn't need to be to where he's uber emotional all the time. I mean, it's okay if men are emotional. I love, like, emotions are wonderful, but I think just having a man who's like comfortable with emotions, and not shy away from opening up about his emotions, or allowing the woman to open up about her emotions as well. And again, it's like the safety, of having that safe space of love and understanding. Um, and then I'm trying to think of a third one, but yeah.
While you're thinking, I'll reflect on that. I think so. One of the core tenets that I like share with the guys I work with is like vulnerability equals strength.
Mm,
And
yes.
the reason I say that is because, if you're this alpha male guy who like does all these things, yet you can't address your fucking emotions because you're too scared, are you really a masculine man? Right. And from my experience, the ability to go deep and be vulnerable is also equal to what you're able to hold space for, whether that's for a woman who's your partner or just anyone. So I think it's so important, and this is something that I highly encourage with everyone I work with. I say, look, if you can just be completely self-honest and vulnerable, like, I will be able to really support you, because if you're not, you're presenting a mirror, like a mask of yourself, like it's an ego protection, which is okay because that's been serving you up until now. However, you're not really gonna like get to the bottom of what you want to get to, right? So I think that's so important. I think with the women asking for like men who are emotional, it's funny because something I found is like, well, what a lot of women say they want and actually want could sometimes be different things. And so
Mm,
I like read between the lines a little bit on that. And the way I perceive that is, of course you want somebody who is emotionally like mature and has like a good EQ. Equally, you have girlfriends to go and cry with, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like
true.
it's finding that balance. And like I think a perfect representation of it, being here in Bali, there are a lot of, let's say, men with, you know, feathers in their hair and tights kind of running around, which is, you know, beautiful for them. Me personally, that doesn't resonate with who I am. But somebody said something to me recently, which was like, I would love like a surfer guy who's really fun and has his shit together, if that exists. And I just thought like, God, God,
It doesn't. It doesn't.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I've tried to find that too.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. There we go. Got it here for first, folks. It doesn't exist. I haven't actually seen a dude like that. Do you know what it is? I think it's because you're like either, okay, I actually do have friends who are kind of like that, but I think either like as a man, like the trajectory a man goes on and a woman goes on, particularly in the earlier years, it can be vastly different. Where for a man, it's more about like forging yourself, developing, and of course, men and women do all of these things, but it's just a bit more emphasized of like, you know, carving your place in the world, like creating yourself, building, etc. Of course, again, women can do all these things, but I think because of that, that's typically why you get guys who are just focused on like the business and like the making money, and tend to be maybe just like a little bit like kind of boring, or just like have like less life experience or ability to go with the flow. Likewise, the go with the flow surfer dude, you know, like he can like surf a sick barrel, but then, you know, like can't like pay for the like restaurant meal at the same time, right? So it's like it's like finding that balance, right? And it seems to me that it's a little bit more extreme on the masculine end. What is your I don't know how we've got into talking about dating and relationships on this, but it's really, hey, we're here. So I did
Yeah,
say it
this
could go.
is exactly. I mean, I think it's a theme right now. I don't know why, but I think it has to do with something going on in the cosmos. Like, so many people are just going through this kind of like relationship turmoil a little bit, or relationship up leveling in a way as well. And it's like a theme with a lot of my friends. And um, yeah, what you just described is exactly what I have experienced in the last year or so. And I think it's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like, is it better to date someone who is older, you know, who has like more of a balance? Because I feel like younger men just don't have this balance of, you know, work and play. They're like, it's all play or it's all work, you know? And um I don't know, maybe like for myself, I have my hobbies, but I also, you know, work really hard too. And so just finding like an equal, not like complete equal, but you know, someone who's on the same level at my age is just kind of like non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's true that men take longer to mature. And I
Hmm.
think the reason why is because it just, actually, I don't know the reason why. Do I know the reason why? I'm trying to think of my own kind of example. Like when I was, so I'm 28, right? And when I was, say, like 21, I was like, I had like run like a marketing agency. I still do, but that was like my first business. And I was just really focused on that. And that was just like what I wanted to do. And so I was just like blinders on, I just want to like figure this thing out. But it was so that like when it wasn't that I didn't want to have a relationship, it was that I wanted to be able to like provide, and I wanted to be able to like give the experiences I wanted to, and just all of these things, right? And even now, like, this is kind of showing my age a little bit. Like, somebody asked me, like, why did you come to Bali? And there's a whole host of reasons. Like, it's very like multi-dimensional, but one of the reasons, honestly, was to visit. They have these green schools out here, and I was thinking, like, well, for my future family, I want to visit like all these places in the world so I can decide, like, where do I want to raise a family, right? But that wouldn't have been something I thought about like earlier on in my life, right? So maybe it is that. Yeah, I tend to see it happens that way in like really successful relationships that I've seen, where the man does tend to be a bit older. I think men are just a little bit stupider, so we just take a little bit longer to figure shit out. It tends to be the way. We realize things late. Like my she won't mind me saying this. Like, my content manager has just sent me some beautiful voice notes. She's gone through a breakup after 4 years, and she's just so beautiful, just so open-hearted, and the guy was just like, did not appreciate her whatsoever. And I was like, you better delete all those social medias, because trust me, he's going to come running back, because he's going to realize, and he's just too immature to recognize, right? And actually, I think something that like isn't really talked about is, I think men actually experience heartbreaks so deeply, but I just don't think they like show it in the same way. It can come out in like rage and these different ways, but men totally do, right? And it's usually because of
Absolutely.
regret.
Yeah. No, and no, it's so funny that I love that we're going with this direction. Um, but yeah, I would say that social media, especially like going through a breakup, it makes your life so much harder because, I don't know how many years ago, like maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, when you went through a breakup, you're like, okay, you had that closure and you probably wouldn't have seen that person again. But now with social media, you can get so sucked into just still seeing your ex, still seeing their family, and checking up on what they're doing, seeing if they're watching your story, seeing if they're liking your posts. And it's like you just have to block them, like to really be able to fully move on healthily, in like in a good way. And it's not like personal, it's like what you need to do to heal, I feel like. So yeah, it's relationships are one of those things where I feel like you truly learn so much about yourself on the other side. But in it, it's you sometimes you lose yourself a little bit. And so to me, breakups are one of the like just biggest launch pads for like personal growth. So yeah, it's interesting just I don't know, with my own experience of, breakups and everything and how much I've changed after each one. Yeah.
Amen. Same here. That was how my coaching company got launched. So
Well, there you go.
thank you to
Yeah.
break it. Also, thank you for those pointers, because I know my content manager, when she goes to edit this, is going to find those very, very helpful coming from you. So I can give her all the advice in the world, but really coming from you, I feel like it's going to resonate more. But yeah, they were a real thing, right? They were a real opportunity. I was speaking with my friend. He also just went through a breakup, and he's on like this amazing momentum streak, like taking him to the gym every day, eating well, like building our businesses, just got this like great drive. And I was just reflecting like how great he was doing today, and I was like, you're probably going to have another breakup soon, because you don't want to lose this momentum.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, breakups aren't fun, but there's so many good lessons. And yeah, I feel like what I just said was definitely meant for your social media manager. So hopefully she hears that.
Well, I'm sure he's smiling right now listening to that. And yeah, it's an interesting thing because she was also asked, and I'm sure this will resonate with other people, right, who are going through breakups. It's like, okay, well, like, what are the things I need to do? Like, I was invited to go to this festival, but I just want to stay home and cry. Like, which one should I do? And it's like, there is no perfect strategy. Like, sure, there are things that you can do that will help yourself, but it's kind of like grief. Like, when you experience grief, there's no right way to experience it. It is a very unique experience, I find. And the way I look at it is just like, if you can just use it as an opportunity, right, to harness that power, like use it, like direct it somewhere. Because like you said, if you get lost in that relationship, your energy is going somewhere, right? And then you get the opportunity now to claim that back and direct it somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, and just pour into yourself. And yeah, I was listening to a Joe Dispenza podcast yesterday, all about relationships. I knew you loved
My
him.
favorite. We
Yes,
love Joe.
yes.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about, if you keep reliving the memories and you keep holding on to your past, you will never be able to first heal yourself and then be able to be open to the next person. And I think that so many times, like after a breakup, it can be hard to not romanticize your past relationship. And something that I was actually talking to Lisa about the other day, she was like, one of my favorite practices is just to write down like all of the cons, no pros, just cons about the relationship, about the person, and have that on hand because our brains love to go to what is familiar and, romanticize our past relationships when in reality, like, maybe that was like 20% of the time and 80% of the time things were not great, and so if you allow your brain to fixate on the romanticizing, then you'll never be able to move on fully. But yeah, it's really amazing what you can do when you pour all of that energy back into yourself and really allow your brain to fixate on your future instead, or even just be in the present and know that pouring love into yourself and pouring worthiness and pouring safety and security into yourself first is going to attract the partner that is energetically aligned for you. And yeah, that's something that really just helped me to let go of my past and just feel like I need to take this time to pour into myself because otherwise I will never attract the partner that, you know, is able to give me the love that I deserve and need, quote unquote. So yeah.
That is a beautiful and very healthy perspective. And it was funny you just mentioned Lisa. I saw one of the things she posted on her story was like, what, like, men are fill in the blank, and then like the women would respond like the first thing that came to their subconscious. I don't know if you saw this, but it was a lot of like, men are bad, men are liars, men are cheaters, and all of these things, right? And it was really interesting from my perspective to just observe that. And I was thinking like, wow, that is most probably a result of like life experience, right? It's okay, maybe some of it's installed beliefs from parents and whoever, but probably it is from life experience. At the end of the day, it's where we get most of our beliefs from. And I was thinking like, wow, that's like, I felt for them first of all, but then it reminded me that, it's funny you touch on Dr. Joe, because he's had a huge like impact in my life, that our brains are a record of the past, right? And something like 90% of our thoughts are the same as yesterday, unless we decide to change them. And it makes sense, right? Because if we understand that our thoughts do create our reality, right? Our thoughts are linked to our emotions are linked to our thoughts. That is part of our internal state. Something I always say is like our internal state equals our external reality. And I just wholeheartedly have just seen this play out too many times to not believe that. But I had that exact same thing. It was nearly, when would this have been, like 9 years ago. I remember getting out of a really toxic relationship and being like, women are like manipulative, women are this, women are that, because that was what I experienced. And for so many years, I was closed, like in my heart, right? And I was just not open to like any kind of intimacy until I made the decision to open. And that was basically experiencing like self-love. And I think one of the things that relationships are beautiful at is allowing like love to be reflected and to feel love. The real lesson I took away, and I learned this through a lot of pain, was that it's not the other person who is like providing that love. They're just holding up a mirror for the love that's already inside of you. Yeah, wow, this got deep real quick. Wow.
I know. I had a feeling it would, honestly. I was like, I'm not sure where this will go, but it's gonna be good.
Well, thank you for showing up. Do you drink coffee, by the way? I feel like do you drink coffee, or are you against coffee? What's your stance? Something a little lighter.
Yes, I do drink coffee occasionally. I love the taste. But I usually just drink it on the weekends, which is so funny because people are like, why would you drink it on the weekend? Like, don't you need it during the week? And it just gets me so jittery that I actually feel like it has the opposite effect on me. Like I just need to be like moving my body when I drink coffee. So yeah, I do drink coffee. I love it, but I try not to drink it every day because it gets me going.
I feel like you're already pretty high energy as it is, so I think I would love to see you on coffee. If you've got any like short videos of you dancing around, that just make my day to see that.
Oh, I will send you one after this. Absolutely.
Coffee was actually an interesting one for me because I used to drink it like religiously, and then I started to get a bit more informed about the effects of caffeine on the body, like the withdrawal effects, etc. Got really angry. I had my like very fancy espresso machine, like got rid of that the same day, and then just went cold turkey for I think 2 years. And then this summer I was in Italy, and in a park called Florence. And I don't know if you've ever been to Italy, but basically like everything is, all food is just amazing no matter where you are. You can be in like a little random cafe and it'll be like the best coffee you've ever had. So I actually started like having a bit of coffee again, and now I'm drinking coffee. One thing I learned is that, because I used to have that jittery thing as well, most coffee actually has mold residue on it. And that for me was the thing that led to the jitters. So when I have like really good quality organic coffee, or like a bulletproof coffee is another nice way of doing it, I don't have any of those jitters. So for some people.
Yes, no, that is so true. You just connected that for me because I did know that, coffee beans themselves do have the mycotoxins and the mold on them. But I didn't know it was connected to the jitters, but that makes so much sense because when I have organic coffee, like I've had the best coffee in Honduras, and it's so fresh, it's so good, and like it doesn't give me the jitters. So and I could drink like 3 cups. Like I was like, I feel great. I'm not jittery. Like I'm just in a good mood. So that makes so much sense. Wow. Yeah. Something that I didn't know. Very cool.
Well, you don't have to sound so surprised, right? I do know some things.
You do know a lot. You really do. You're not just a quantum coach. You're a holistic quantum coach.
We create our own titles. We don't need to put degrees in front of our name. We make our own titles. They're way more fun.
Exactly. Yes. No, I love that. Yeah, coffee's good. This morning I had like a little bit of a matcha and I drink this like adaptogenic type powder as well with my matcha because I sometimes I have a little bit of brain fog. I think it's just like some residual stuff from still healing my gut and everything. So yeah, it really helps. The mushrooms really help.
That's what they all say. The mushrooms just really help. Okay.
The mushrooms changed my life.
The mushrooms did also change my life. So, but that will be another podcast.
Yes. Yes.
Or an offline conversation. Okay. I'm conscious of, I can't believe how much time has whizzed by already. I want to be respectful. I'm sure you've got a day of stuff to do. So I want to ask you one more question. All right, we're gonna how old are you, by the way?
I'm 26.
26. Okay. So you're 26 now. You're gonna fast forward all the way to the end of your life. You've lived this beautiful, amazing life. You've built all the businesses you wanted to build. You've helped all the people, had amazing families, if that's what you want to do, and all the things. And it's your final day on this earth, at least in this incarnation. And you can't leave any of the physical things behind to, your family, your loved ones, the people that you care most about. But you can leave them with one parting piece of wisdom or advice. What would you leave them with?
Ooh, wow. I'm getting misty-eyed over here.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Wow, I think one of the biggest things that I would want my family and friends to know and live out throughout their life is to listen to their gut and to listen to their intuition and to allow God and the universe to really guide them. I think that's like one of the most important things you could do. If you have a dream in your heart, you have this idea in the back of your head, you hear this little voice, telling you to travel or to, leave your job or do something. It's I believe it's God like telling you that this is what you need to be doing. This is what I have planned for you. And, to live this life that you think is right or normal and to live for others is so sad. And that's what I would want to leave behind is just the knowing that following your heart and your intuition is probably one of the most important things that you could ever do for yourself and for others too. I think that our world is really starting to wake up to that, and that's why there's so many more conscious individuals. We're waking up to, wow, I have this dream and I have this knowledge, and I was put here on earth to use it and to give to others and to really fulfill this purpose. So yeah, that was kind of a not just like one sentence, but that's what I would want to leave behind for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That was beautiful. And yeah, if that touched anyone else like it did me, then that was a real service. You definitely had that prepared. I don't believe that you just came up with that on the spot. That was too good to just like come up with that.
No, it just came to me. I just listened to my gut.
All right, at least you're taking your own advice.
Yeah.
That's more believable. Okay, well, Maggie, thank you for your time. We went in all sorts of directions today, from gut health to the matrix to relationships to everything else in between. And I love it for that reason. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? What's the best way for them to contact you? We'll link everything below, but if you just want to let people know so they can find you, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I know you usually have guys on your podcast, so I feel very, very special to be able to, be on here with you and to share this knowledge. So thank you. And you can find me at Maggie Moon with 3 O's on Instagram. And you can also, I don't have Twitter, I have Facebook at Maggie Perkins. And then I also have a podcast as well called Abundant Growth. So, oh, and then I forgot, I have a second Instagram called Mind Body Balance Holistics. So that is where I post like all of my health information and just kind of like knowledge tidbits. So that one's great to follow as well.
Beautiful. Well, they will all be linked below. I'm sure there'll be some wonderful women on the way, maybe some guys too. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Amazing. Thank you so much again. And yeah, we'll speak soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.